Yo, what is crack-a-lackin' Ridge Runner Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Ridge Runners Live. Tonight we are joined by two incredible guests who recently ran the Canal Corridor 100-mile endurance run, and a course record was set this past year as well at this race. We're excited to dive into it. One guest we've had on before, and the other one we're excited to have on and learn all about as well. Without further ado, gentlemen, Jacob Moss and Caleb Bowen, how are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, dude, awesome. Thanks for having us.
For sure. We're super excited to kind of talk to you guys about your epic race. No spoilers at this point about how it went down and how close it was. We'll dive into that shortly. But, as always, I'm joined by the lovely JD3, John Dolovaki III. What's going on, man?
Not much. Excited for this discussion here. As you guys know, like Canal was my first 100 last year, so I'm just excited to talk about it again. That course means a lot to me, so I would never run it as fast as these two gentlemen, but we can always have hopes and dreams, right? Just a reminder for everyone who's watching live, drop those questions in the chat and we'll bring them on here to Caleb and Jacob. Let's start with our favorite part of this whole show. What are we drinking? Caleb, what do you got?
So I got the Marshall University Earth Country Lager. It's by Country Boy Brewing out in Lexington, Kentucky. But just trying to rep the herd. And that's where I went to school and it's where I coach now. But yeah.
Nice. Jacob, what are you over there?
I am drinking Zevia, and it is one of the flavors that does not have caffeine since I'm probably going to bed not long after this. So.
Oh, yeah. Caleb, we got to talk about that mug over there. I just saw that come up on the screen.
So here's my mug from Free Folk Brewery. I feel kind of bad for drinking another beer out of, a brewery mug, but it's such a cool mug, and I definitely want to rep the Free Folk as much as I can. So
nice. Wesley, what do you got over there?
Oh, it's a basic Wednesday night for me, and that means it's a White Claw Wednesday. We're bringing it all the way back, raspberry flavor this week. Excited to kind of crack into that. John, what about you?
I am drinking an Athletic Brewing Company, one in a melon mojito here. So let's see if I can get that focus. There we go. I always like getting their custom ones off the website and ordering them in. It's pretty delicious. Wish I could share with y'all.
Cool. Well, let's dive into it. Obviously, we've got the drinks out of the way. Let's talk Canal, guys. This is obviously was an epic showdown between you two, and we're excited to kind of learn more about even the backstory behind it. And that's kind of where I want to start tonight's show. Is why did you guys choose to sign up for the Canal Corridor 100? What were your motivations? What were your big draws? And why did you choose to go after this 100-mile race? And if Jacob, if you want to start this one off.
Yeah, so I chose Canal because I started by looking through. There's a site called Run Hundreds. It's got a lot of the 100 miles listed on it, and you can see their elevation plots and everything. So first thing I was doing was looking for flat hundreds. Next thing I wanted to do was be able to line up a 24-hour that would be not too long after, but long enough to get some recovery in and get a couple of training weeks in if possible. So last year I had done Tunnel Hill. I think the week turnaround was a little too quick. So I ended up dropping around the 12-hour at Desert Solstice last year. But this year I'll have a 5-week turnaround. So I added a little extra week in there. Still got my flat 100. So far it is working out great. So I'm about to hit 100 mile for my last 7 days. I've had a pretty good ramp, some solid workouts, and hoping it pays off having that extra week. So that's a lot of what drove me on this one.
Definitely. And we're excited to kind of dive into your future goals for that upcoming race kind of at the end of the show as well. Caleb, going back to you now, what were kind of your motivations for Canal this year?
Yeah, so it really wasn't planned all year or anything like that. So I originally planned to do Rim to River again as my third time, third 100. But throughout the summer, I started to look at like what I really wanted to accomplish this year and definitely next year. And one of the bucket lists I had on my list last year, like one of the races I wanted to do was Bandera. And I unfortunately hurt myself trying to come back to get ready for Bandera after Rim to River last year. So I was looking for 100 that was, flatter, that also had more time, so that if I did get hurt, like I could have some time to recover and then try to get a good training block in. So I was looking at the like September through October time period, and Canal Corridor was literally perfect. I mean, it's advertised as 800 feet elevation gain. I had more than that, but okay. I had like 1,700, but it was just really cool because like I've always wanted to do a flat 100. Scared the crap out of me because I just didn't know what to expect with that. But I was hoping I'd be able to recover well from it, and also it just worked out. I mean, everything going from like the cross country season, we were off that weekend, so I really didn't have to worry about that as much. Crew and everything like that. I had people that were available. So, I definitely committed to it. I think early September is whenever I finally decided to pull the trigger on it. And that meant I had to email Bryant Baker, who's the Rim to River race director, and tell him I was going to go with a different race. And he was totally cool. He understood because he loves Bandera as well, as that was his first ultra race. So hopefully it all works out. But it was definitely a fun time at Canal.
So let's just jump right into this race, and then we can go back and do some history of the two of you. Start line vibes, kind of what you guys were thinking that day of, what were your goals, and what were you guys doing? Were you two eyeing each other up? Did you both know each other that were fast and you were there and you were like talking shit all day long, or what? Jacob, you want to go first on that one?
Yeah, no, we didn't know each other. And it was an interesting day because, I kind of went out with my goal in mind. I started out around probably a 6:40-ish, 6:45 pace. So I was moving along pretty well. I was intending for a low 12 hour. And if I had a good day, hoping for maybe sub 12. I didn't end up getting that. I ended up slipping above the 7-minute mile, I think around 45-ish miles. So yeah, I ended up hitting my 100K split a little slower than I wanted at 7:29. And when I would turn around is when I would see Caleb. So he would be pacing with somebody at 50 miles. I forget who he was pacing with then. But it was around there. And I knew that he was too close for comfort. So I tried to keep moving on a little bit. And then toward the end, actually, we found this out in another podcast we did. I think that we might have talked to the same guy that was on a bike. And he rode by me, and I asked him, how far back is the next guy? And I was probably 3 miles out from finish. And he said he's at least a mile behind you. If you hold pace, there's no way he'll catch you. So I held pace pretty much, and I thought, if I just cruise it in, I'll be good. And next thing you know, Caleb just like flies by me with his pacer. I'm like, where did you come from? So it made for an interesting little last, mile and a half or so. It wasn't a super long amount of time before the race was over. So it made for an interesting end.
How was the start for you, Caleb?
Yeah, so the start was, it was cool. I like the atmosphere a lot. Being at the brewery and you're in downtown Akron, and there's just a lot of people just hanging around and talking and stuff. It was a little bit cooler, which was good, but it wasn't too cold, if that makes sense. Like, it was a good temperature where you didn't really need a whole lot of layers, but you knew that you're going to keep cool the whole day. And we were blessed with great temperatures. It started off in like the low 40s and got up to like 54-ish, and then went back down. So no complaints there. I did my stalking on Ultra Sign Up, and I saw Jacob. So of course I went to his tunnel hill, and I was like, oh shoot, this is a 1250 guy. Okay. And then, I went to his Instagram and, stalked some of his runs and stuff. So I knew Jacob, like, I felt like I knew him pretty well. But I didn't see him beforehand until we got to the line. I was like, is that Jacob? No, that's not him. Is that? No, no. So we finally get to the line and he emerges out of the shadows, comes up. And so I'm like, okay, I know where he is now. And then, the race takes off. We go down just probably 300 meters, take a left onto the what we call a trail, the corridor trail. And, Jacob's 20 meters ahead and just pulling away. So I was like, well, there goes that goal of winning. So we're just going to try to hold pace, try to hold, like, that first mile was like 7:02 and my goal was around 7:20. So I was like, I guess we'll just try to hang on as long as I can just at this pace. And eventually found, it wasn't too long, I found 2 other guys to run with, Nick, and I forgot the other guy's name. I need to look him up. But we just, sat around, talked for a couple of miles. And then eventually the other guy that I don't know his name peeled off. And then me and Nick ran for, I think, 35 miles together. And he was a stud. I mean, he was a 14:06 5K runner, 2:24 marathoner. So I got to learn all about him and his history and his family and everything. So that was really fun. But around, so we saw Jacob at the turnaround on the southern terminus, and you had probably 6 minutes on us by that point, because it seemed like it took about maybe a little bit less than a mile to get to the aid station. And then we turn around, come back, and I could tell Nick really wanted to take off to try to cut the gap. And I was like, dude, this is a 100-mile race. There's no reason to be surging or anything quite yet, because we got 80 miles left or 70 miles. And then eventually he started to wear down, and because we were talking a lot, and then I noticed that his talking kind of waned, and I'm like, oh no, Nick's feeling it. So eventually he stopped at an aid station. I didn't really want to stop, so we just kept pulling, or I kept pulling. And then at mile 40, like the halfway point or close to the halfway point back at the brewery, that's where I picked up Arlen, my first pacer. And then we ran together till it was 21 miles. And then I picked up Jeremy Pope, who's been on this podcast before too. And then, ran with him, and then eventually got Holly Ann Swan, who's one of my best friends and, running partners. And she took me in for last 6. So that was pretty much the day right there.
Yeah, no, I kind of love how, you guys have both 2 different starting line approaches. Caleb's over here seeing ghosts, trying to look down for any person that even looks anything close to this Jacob character. And Jacob, you're just doing your own thing. Like, hey, I'm going to go out at my pace, do my own thing on race day. And, I think that's kind of a cool contrast that you guys had at the starting line. But one thing I want to know is, and, I think some viewers will want to know, is you guys, you ran this course so fast. How did you manage the aid stations throughout the day? Was it, quick grabbing goes? Was there any strategy involved with, the calories that you were consuming, whether it was liquid versus hard food, and then the process behind that? And Caleb, if you want to start off by taking this one.
Yeah, so mine's definitely not as calculated as Jacob's was. Just, lack of experience, and just, you never really, you don't know. And rim to river, my only 100-mile experience is totally different than this flat 100, because you're running the entire time, running at a decent speed too. There's no stop and walk up a hill or anything like that. So I brought 17 Science and Sport gels. I like those gels a lot. They settle with my stomach pretty well. I think they have, correct me if I'm wrong, it probably has about 26 to 30 grams of carbohydrates in them. And I like them because you don't really need to drink water with them. They're just made so you don't need to drink water. So every aid station, I had my parents switch out a water bottle, and every water bottle had 2 gels in it. And then that water bottle itself had this Science and Sport electrolyte drink, which has 34 grams of carbohydrates as well. And then eventually I would get cycled in some Wharton's solid just to have something in my stomach. So the first 50 miles, that's all I took, was just those gels, two at a time, and then the solid as well. So I don't know how many calories I took in, but I mean, I felt like I did a pretty good job for me. And then once I got to the brewery, which is the halfway point, I started to eat solid foods more. Mashed potatoes seemed to be my go-to. They were easy to eat pretty quickly, and like I made a big tub of instant mashed potatoes before I came. And I thought I had enough, but eventually I ran out, and I actually boiled a lot of boiled potatoes as well. And my dad started squishing those and making mashed potatoes out of them. So it was kind of cool to see us learn on the fly a little bit there. But pretty much every aid station that the parents and crew were able to be at, I would eat some form of potatoes in the last 40 miles. So I ate a lot of potatoes. The gels about mile 70 started to go against me. I threw up one of them with Arlen, and I didn't really want to go like take them again until like mile 88, I think. So everything else from that was like either liquid or mashed potatoes.
Awesome. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a little more on the more calculated end of things. And the reason for that, I think, is because I've done so many track ultras to this point. So when you're passing your crew every quarter mile, you start to get pretty honed in on what you need, and you can calculate it pretty well. And one thing I do too is I use Gatorade GX patches. If y'all aren't familiar, or any listeners aren't familiar, GX patches will tell you how much sodium you lose in your sweat and how much you sweat per hour. So I actually take in more than it says I sweat, but I do go primarily by its sodium loss. So I'm able to get in my sodium, and then I do a carbohydrate that's separate. And I didn't take any solid on this one. It was all liquid. So that was my plan going in. I do higher calorie counts, pretty high carbohydrate, 300+ per hour. So depending on how I feel. So, but I typically don't dip below 300. So.
Now, Jacob, did you use Morton's, or what did you use?
I use multiple different things. I actually drank, one of the things I drank that doesn't have a lot of calories in it was Ghost energy drinks. Those were one of my absolute favorites in race. Actually, it used to be Rain. With energy drinks, I've kind of switched around. It used to be Rain. I've done Bang energy. But I think Ghost is my favorite. So, and then carbohydrate, I've used a lot of Martin. So yeah.
Nice.
That's definitely in there. One thing that works well too is Welch's fruit gummies, by the way. So if you like them.
They're good.
Yeah, definitely. But, now, do you use the 320 or calories?
Yeah. Normally if I use Martin, I'll use the 320. And then I'll have an electrolyte drink of some sort that's probably got around 50-ish calories or so. So I'll alternate.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
works pretty well.
For you, Caleb, probably was a little bit different in the fact that you had a lot more chances for aid than you're used to at something like Rim to River, where you don't get to see your crew like every 3 or 5 miles like you do on, especially on Canal's course. They're almost every stop you can see someone. So did you have a plan for how to manage that and how to make sure you're not spending too much time at an aid station?
So to be honest, in my spreadsheet that I sent out to my crew, it was supposed to be every other aid station I was going to see my crew. So it's going to end up being just like Rim to River. However, thankfully, my crew ignored that, and they just went to every aid station. So that was good, because I was definitely depending on them quite a bit. Now, the first 48 miles or whatever, I didn't stop at all. So kind of like what Jacob would do, I would just switch out water bottles and just keep running hopefully without a hitch. Once I started stopping, I try to limit my stops to about what I was hoping for is sub 2 minutes. I was hoping for like 90 seconds if possible. Because like Rim to River, I had like 35 to 40 minutes of dead time where I stopped and ate and whatnot. So I really wanted to minimize that as much as I could. This time, after looking at Strava and stuff, it's about 14 to 15 minutes of stop time. Now, part of that too is like peeing. Me and Jacob talked about that on the podcast. where it's cool, not necessarily cold, but you're not sweating as much in the morning. So if you're hydrating well, like we were doing, it felt like every 10 minutes we had to pee. And I felt like I was losing the race because I had to stop and pee. And like, there's nothing you can do about it. But like, I mean, it was rough. Now, second half of the race, I guess we were sweating more, so I wasn't peeing as much. But that was something that I definitely was trying to plan out. Actually, I remember with Jeremy Pope, I think we're about like 88 or 89 miles. You pass over this one dam, whatever, and there's like a water stop there, but there's no crew. I remember being able to see Jacob for the first time ever, like on the same stretch. Got really excited and everything, but I was like, I need to pee right now, so that way I don't have to pee the rest of the day. And I don't know if it was a good decision or not, because like the fact that I could see him, I had hope. And then when I got to the aid station, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's like 3 minutes ahead." I'm like, he was just right there. Like, did it take that long? I guess it did. So I don't know. It's just something you have to work and you don't really think about beforehand, but that's a part of the race that you have to figure out.
Yeah, we've talked to a few runners who've like got it down to the second of how long they can take to change their shoes. Like they just know how long, like all that stuff down to the science. So it's always crazy to see how people manage the time, dead time, as you said, wasted time almost. Not wasted, but definitely dead time.
There's dead time. Yeah, anytime you're not running is dead time. And it was funny because like in the last like 10 miles, like, my dad probably gets mad at me for saying it, but like he was getting kind of anxious because he's like, you're gaining on him, but then like you're losing it whenever you're at the aid station. So he's trying to rush me out, and I'm like, Dad, I need to eat. Like, just give me the food. Like, and I remember my mom would said something to him like, Charlie, stop rushing him. And it's like, but I needed that push to get out of there because I would have stayed there all day if I could. But it's just funny because they were probably a little more anxious than I was. Because at a certain point, like when all day you're being told where Jacob is, and then you can see him sometimes and sometimes you can't. You kind of start to lose hope a little bit whenever like 3 minutes could be 3 miles for all I know. And then me and Jeremy, right at the end of his little stretch, there was like so many people were like, "Yeah, Jacob's right up ahead." I'm like, what does that mean? Is he like right there, or is he like 3 minutes or 4 minutes? Like, I don't know. And so I was kind of just like, whatever happens, I'm still having fun. This has been a great day. I'm running fast, so it really doesn't matter. But then Holly Ann kind of changed that whenever she started pacing me. She started to drill in my head, like, you can do this, you can win. And I'm like, okay. So
Jacob, was the reverse same for you? Were you being told that Caleb was right on your tail and that you need to keep moving? Or did you hear nothing?
I didn't hear a lot. Only feedback I got on it was that last guy on the bike that I mentioned. So all day, that was the only thing that I really heard. I didn't really know I was being hunted, I guess, so to speak, unless I saw him at a turnaround. So yeah, I was just
plant that guy on the bike there.
I mean, it was just funny. So at the 3 mile to go aid station, which I think is more like 4 miles. Arlen's like, hey, he's like 2 minutes and 10 seconds ahead. I'm like, okay, cool. We've cut some time. And then that guy on the bike was just a little bit up ahead. He's like, yeah, he's 90 seconds ahead. I remember he like looked at his watch. So I'm like, he's probably legit. Like, he's probably like telling the truth here. Because he actually looked at his watch. He timed it. So that was the mile that really started. Yeah, because I was in a funk where I hit like 3 8:03 miles in a row. And Holly kept pressing me like, hey, we just need to pick it up a little bit. Just pick it up a little bit. It wasn't until that moment where I'm like, okay, we might be able to cut some distance down. So that 8:03 became a 7:40. And then there's a tiny little hill, it's like a 5% grade. On that mile, it's like a 7:50. And then at that point, that's whenever at the top of that hill is when I saw the white shirt that Jake was wearing. And that's when the alarms went off in my head. And then we were able to start running pretty fast.
So I should have worn black.
You should have, but never
should have worn black. Man, I'll remember that for next time.
Yep.
Just change shirts the last 10 miles of the race. You can wear white
Yeah,
all
exactly.
day in the sunlight and then change at the end there. No, that's kind of interesting though to hear the mentality, especially for you, Caleb. In the past 200-mile experiences that you've had, you've kind of been the person out in front and kind of leading the pack. And now this experience, you were kind of doing the one chasing from behind. I'd love to hear from both of you in regards to this. What do you guys prefer in a race like this? Would you guys rather be the one chasing from behind all day and, maybe not even knowing if it's going to kind of come a reality and you have the chance to overtake the win? Or would you rather be the one kind of just leading the charge, not really worrying about the external factors and just kind of running your own race, just knowing that you're out in front in a safe spot? And I'll let you start with this one.
Yeah, so I think there are pros and cons to both. Sometimes it puts you in a good headspace to chase somebody. I remember being in that position when I ran. I had to be careful with Tunnel Hill because I didn't want to mess myself up too badly for Solstice. But I remember chasing down Zach, who ended up finishing just before me still. But it can be good because, you're out there and I don't have far and I can just reel them in a little bit, but when you're in the front, you can also get in your own headspace. You can zone out. You can listen to your music. You can listen to podcasts, whatever, and kind of get into a chill zone, so they're just two very different mindsets to be in. And I think sometimes it'll come down to the day on how I feel with which one I would prefer to be in. I think being on the track, I would definitely prefer just go out and do my own thing, but that's easier because you're not reeling someone in on a 20-something mile stretch, whereas on a trail, you are constantly some sort of distance from somebody that you have to physically close. It's different than on a track. So, I think it depends on the race. I think it depends on what kind of headspace you can get yourself in that day. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I don't think
answer.
that there's a specific answer.
Yeah, no, I love it. Caleb, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Jacob. Like, both are ideally what you want to be able to do both if you're going to be a good runner, definitely a good racer. And you have to figure it out during the race which one's going to work for that day. Because I've had really a lot of good experiences with both. I think there's like a sense of control whenever you're leading that is very appealing to me. I love being able to hammer, and if I'm out in the front, like I love being chased. So I typically go with that route. And usually if I'm doing that, like I don't do a whole lot of research on people who are in the race itself, just because it's like, it doesn't really matter what they do. I'm just going to try to hammer and test my limits as much as possible. But also I kind of like being the chaser because, it gives you something to go after, but also you're able to get into some type of flow state within that type of race itself too, where you're letting it control. How to explain it? You're giving up control because essentially it's up to the person in front of you to either bowl up or you to catch them. So you're giving up the control of the race. And if it happens, it happens, and it doesn't, it doesn't. There's something kind of appealing to that too, because you're just out there having fun running. And I like that aspect of it. And that's kind of what I did at Canal. Like, I remember telling Nick early on, I'm like, dude, if Jacob keeps crushing like he is, he's gonna run a record of some sort. So it's gonna be cool to be part of this. And if not, then maybe we're in a good position to go catch him. So control's out of our hands at this point. We're just gonna run and have fun with it. So I like that mentality of it, but I also love just being the guy crushing, just pushing as hard as possible just to see what happens. Typically, like I said, I'm the one leading just to push and see what happens, because the races that I've run so far have been where the competition allows me to do that. Hopefully I'm able to do a little more competitive races here in the future where, if you're leading and you're leading some really good people, like it's going to be a little bit different, but I think there's merits to both types of races.
I've kind of got a follow up based on that, and both of you guys are coaches or kind of coach athletes in some regards, and how would you translate this advice to someone who is in the mid pack or just going out there running their own race, but then also can kind of like push to kind of either take a couple spots off their own race or the vice versa, just lock into their own headspace, kind of do their own thing. Because personally, I'm not going to be out here winning Canal or chasing down one or you two guys or leading the race unless I'm going for the first mile record. I can probably run 1 mile at 6:40 right now. But talk to me about that and how you would use that advice to give to your athletes, or how do you portray that to them and actually give them that advice? And Caleb, if you want to start with this one.
Yeah, so I mean, coaching the college runners is a little bit different because collegiate races are definitely a whole lot different than ultras. But like, if you're a middle of the pack person, you gotta have your own goals set, and you just have to win the little battles. And every runner in the race has a little battle, whether that be to push a certain section, say in Canal Corridor. Um, it's going to get tough in the last 20 miles just because it's so flat, so straight, and everything's kind of just the same. You got to train your brain just to be able to zone out and perform. Don't get in your head. Don't start letting the negative thoughts come in. You just got to let it all go and just run. So like my collegiate athletes, I tell them, just run and have fun. You go out hard, put yourself in a position to do well. And if it happens, then great. If not, we'll figure out why it didn't work out. So like for a middle pack runner, I have a lot of good friends who are in the ultra community in Huntington. And Brandon Perry is one that actually pops up in mind. He's definitely in that upper echelon of middle pack. So he's definitely a guy who's like shooting for the top 10, top 15. He's never going to probably win a lot of these races. But hey, he's going to run something pretty quick. So you just got to find those opportunities where you go into the pain cave and come out of it on the good end of it. So like he just did No Business 100 the week after Canal Corridor. And that was one of his goals, was to come out of the pain cave and finish, because his main goal was shot. He wanted to run sub 24. That wasn't going to happen. So he had to reevaluate his goals and ended up just trying to work in. He ended up getting like 17th or 18th out of the whole field, and a lot of people dropped out. So in my mind, that's a win. And I don't know if that answers your question or not. Kind of rambling, but I think everybody can win those small battles in their own brain, and that's the main thing. That's a win in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love that mentality, and I think that you hit it perfectly on the head with, no matter what kind of runner you are, everyone's got to win the small battles, and if you can do that, you're going to have a great day in your own race. I think that's kind of the beauty of the sport. Jacob, what about you? What advice would you give to your athletes about this?
Yeah, so a lot of the time, what I'll push for from everything from 10K up, maybe even 5K up, is push the last 30%. And a lot of what you'll see with that is, when you're running all the way down to a 5K, that can mean a negative split. With a 10K, it's very close to negative split as well, if not even. 5K, 10K, pretty even. Half marathon and a marathon, you're looking at a pretty solid race if you can even split and negative split ideally. But then when you get into ultras, there are some that'll push a negative split type of mentality, but I think that it typically will come down to some sort of slowing in pace. And that's when you need to push that last 30%. So if you're going to go out too fast, you don't want to give up more time in the front end than you do on the back end. So with that last 30%, you need to be able to match what you've done for the whole race. And if that's too fast, then that would be a race goal adjustment, right? That'll come down to individual race goals more so than, pacing with somebody or focusing on, catching the next person or whatever it may be. It's focusing on your time. And if you push that last 30% and you gave it what you've got, then that's what matters.
Great advice there. I personally like, I got to add this comment in here, Dan Green's method of following in second place and making sure first place knows that they're behind and they're catching up. I believe he screamed at you multiple times at Rim River last year and was like, "I'm coming for you." So
Yep, very distinctly with like a mile and a half to go to the Concho aid station, which is the very last aid station. Like I thought we broke Dan Green. I thought he was gone. Like, 'cause I ran really hard up Arbuckle Hill, and I thought he was done. So then, like, whenever I heard him coming, and I saw his light too, so that helped. But yeah, giving first place a little scare every now and then is not bad. Although I think the method is don't let them see you until the very, very end. That's probably the best method.
That's what you did.
Yeah, and that's a great. So
I'm not gonna lie.
That position though, like to talk about how that actually happened and the emotions for both of you when that happened, because then it became a race. Like, it was like a race from that point on.
It was. Yeah. So, like I said, with 3 miles, like whenever I picked up Holly and Jeremy Pope and I had planned just to run through the aid station. So she picked me up, and those were like my slowest miles of the day. Like the first 3 miles, she kept pressing me to keep running harder. And I was just like, I feel like I'm surging, but I'm running the same pace, and it's like 8:03. And I think part of that was due to it was getting dark, and I really didn't want to turn on a light or anything at that point. But it was getting dark, and things just weren't running as fast as I could have. So we get to that last aid station, find some hope, but it's still at that point. I'm like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm having fun. Whatever happens, happens. And then we go up the hill, and like Holly Ann kept asking, like, is this the hill? Is this the hill? And I'm like, I don't even remember a hill, so maybe, And then finally we see a sign that says like 5% grade. I'm like, I think that's it. I mean, that makes sense. It's 5% grade. So we push hard. I mean, she kept pushing me to run hard, and eventually, like I said, like we could see his white shirt. So, and she like screeched whenever she saw it. She was like, "Yee!" I'm like, "What in the world?" And then I see it. I'm like, "Oh no, it's happening." So like, I had to like prepare my brain because we were running really hard at this point. And then she took off. Like she had a plan in her mind. So she took off. I'm just like holding on for dear life. She comes up, and then like I think her plan was just to pass as fast as possible. So she did, and I kind of had to as well. And then from then on, I was like, I can't let him catch me because, I mean, he definitely deserves the win because actually my watch clicked 100 miles before I caught him. So technically he won the 100-mile race. But and the thing that was like,
I was 101.8.
Yeah. I had like 101.37. But I think we caught you at the crosswalk. And that was another thing. Like, I don't want to pass him because the car's coming. We both have to stop. Like, that's going to be really awkward to like finally catch him and have to stand and like look at each other while a car comes by. So fortunately, no cars were coming. So we just sprint as hard as we could. And like, she's giving directions like, come left, because there's like a bunch of leaves right over on the right. So I had to like veer left, veer right. And then at that point, like I just literally sprinted as hard as I could because I was like, I can't let him catch me because if he catches me, I'm done. Like there's nothing left in my heart to go any faster. It's just, so we just ran hard. And I remember at one point we were pretty close to making the final left turn, and we passed a guy named Jeffrey Benatti. I think that's how you say his last name. He makes the maps for the Rough Guide map, thing. And he remembered me from Rim to River, and he started screaming, and that got me really pumped up. Like he like, Caleb, you got this, and I like started sprinting as far as I could. And then I think we scared a lot of the aid station workers because they weren't really expecting any of us to come, and we come blowing through, and they were like, "Here's your bags." Then it wasn't our bag, but and then we could tell that no one at the finish line was ready, so we were like letting out some yelps and whoops and stuff, and no one was really reacting. So eventually we come through and like, oh, here's the winner, cool, and that was it. So definitely the emotions were like, I mean, pure joy because like definitely in the last 10 minutes things switched really quickly, but it was just, I mean, I was very ready to be done. it's one of those races where I would have been totally fine if it was 99 miles. Like, I wouldn't have run any more to make it 100. 98, 99, that'd been cool, but no, it was over 100, so that was fun. But yeah, just I was very happy, and then I felt really bad because I'm like, I feel like that was dishonorable to pass somebody that late. They've been leading the entire time. Like, I didn't like that feeling. Like, I wish I would have made a push earlier to catch him earlier to make it a race and give it like but it just felt, I don't know, weird. So that's why I was like, I apologize whenever you finished, Jacob. I was like, I'm sorry.
No, that's racing,
me
man.
crying. Like, but no, it was a fun time.
How about you, Jacob? What was that emotion like to lead 99% of the race? Literally.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a little tough, because he passed me on the hill. And so I live in Charleston, which we have no hills here. So I kind of had it planned out even before the race. I had everything plotted out. I knew where the elevation changes were and everything. And I knew that I was going to slow on that hill in particular, which I did according to plan. And of course, he passed me on that hill. After that mile, I think we split probably a similar mile. I think I was around a 740 for my last one. And I think he was too. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb.
My last mile was 623.
623.
Yeah, it was the fastest mile of the day. Yeah.
Nice. Good job.
I was scared.
Well, yeah, I picked back up after that hill though, but I didn't have enough to be able to pull it out that quick. I typically do a little bit of recovery after my harder hills and stuff, because I'm not used to them. I don't have that strength from running in mountains all the time, and we have one hill here. It's the Arthur Ravenel Bridge. If anyone's familiar with the Cooper River Bridge Run, it's a 10K here in Charleston. It's like the only hill we have. So I did some hill repeats on it and everything to make sure I was prepared, but I didn't expect to be passed on the last little bit. So kudos to Caleb for grinding it out and pushing it out all the way up and carrying it through that last mile. So, question.
Thank you, Huntington, for having a little bit of hills around.
Yeah.
Just small. They're real small. Casual.
They're small compared to the Shawnee State stuff that you guys have.
Yeah.
I remember, so I was like watching your guys' race like all day down in Shawnee State Forest for the Shawnee 50. And like, I'm just sitting there like, where I'm at the finish line for them, like, finishing up watching some of the last people come through near that before it got dark. And I was like, Caleb's still right there. And then all of a sudden you passed him. And I remember looking at Michael and be like, how did that happen? Because it was like, like the last update we got was like 90 something or from some people who were out there. And I was like, what? I was just like freaking out because I didn't know what happened. Like, it's just so crazy to see a switch like that so close to the end and whatnot. So, and I think it's awesome to see how like, you're like, I'm sorry I took it from you. And like just being like humble about it and being like, I didn't mean to, I just ran.
It definitely wasn't planned, that's for sure.
And I think you both broke what was the course record, right?
Oh yeah, Arlen's record was like 1340.
Did Arlen yell at you? He's like, now I gotta come back and do this again?
he mentioned it actually. He's like, you need to run something fast, so I need to come back and break it again. And I was like, okay, that's not low-key humble, okay. But you gotta keep in mind, whenever he broke the record or set the record, it was like, was it August or July? Whenever they ran that race.
That's right. Yeah. It was in July.
Yeah.
So totally different. I mean, we had perfect weather. I mean, even last year it was pretty warm for what remember seeing. So
yeah, it was warm, but it got to that cold at night where like you all of a sudden start peeing every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife was like, "Are you gonna stop? Like, are you okay?"
Yeah.
So it definitely dropped down, got chilly and whatnot, and then Wesley was like there to make me run and warm up, but.
Yeah. John, I want to hear more about your race.
Nah, we could talk about it another time.
No.
It was a blast. It was last year, though. But Nothing lined up yet. We'll have to work on another 100-miler.
Well, speaking of some guys that have some stuff lined up shortly, you guys, what's next for you guys in terms of the races that you got coming up? Both of you guys kind of touched on earlier. This is kind of a tune-up run, or a race that you kind of want to propel, moving forward. What's next, Jacob? Let's start with you.
Yeah, so my next one will be the Stinger. That's the shirt I'm wearing. Best 24-hour in the nation, so I'll be getting back on the track. I'll be, as always, shooting for too high of goals. See what I can get. I hope to start at the pace average I averaged at Canal, so around a 7:30ish. See how long I can carry. So we'll see what ends up happening.
How did you get into the track 24-hour events? Was it just something that you're like, hey, I just want to go out there and try to see how fast I can run, or what's the mentality? Because I feel so different for me. I just want to learn to see if I can have a new perspective on it that makes me be like, okay, this is what I want to go do in 2023.
Yeah. So, are you a numbers guy?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So
yeah.
I'm a
I always
big
tell people I'm gonna
numbers
finish
guy.
top 5, and I don't. So I like numbers.
I'm a big numbers guy. So when I ran my first, I got the idea a few weeks before that there was a possibility I might have the fitness to try and run a U.S. team qualifier, 145 miles. I ended up meeting a guy named Joe Fegis, if any of you know that name. He has held multiple records and everything. I think he holds the 72-hour record and things like that. But he beat me out with 125 miles, and I ran 122 and a half. It was actually at the Stinger as well. It was my first 24-hour on the track. And from then on, I started shooting for the U.S. team. Had multiple failed attempts, ended up running 159 plus. That was my U.S. team qualifier, but go figure, the world championships were canceled for that year I was going to be running. So I've been doing that ever since, and I've continued to build fitness that is above and beyond that. So I hope to set my goal and see what I can get.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we're excited to be rooting you on here in a week or so when you're out there. So best of luck out there for sure.
Yeah.
Jacob, we're doing desert.
This one will be my main one of the year, so we'll see what happens.
Jacob, are you doing desert solstice as well?
Oh, no. No.
That'd be a quick turnaround, but.
Yeah, well, that would be a Tunnel Hill turnaround. So Tunnel Hill falls on the same weekend as the Stinger, so it would be a 4-week. But there's no way you could do a 4. Well, I take that back. There are people who have done a 4-week turnaround, even shorter from a 24-hour, but I strongly recommend against it. Yeah. 4-week is quick enough from a 100-miler. I think it's too much for a 100-miler. That's personal opinion, though. So.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb, what about you? What's next in the hopper?
Yeah, so I really wanted to find a race in between now and January 6th, like between now and Bandera, but it's probably best that I don't. I really just want to get a good training block in because I definitely looked at the McDowell Mountain 50-mile race in Arizona. Scott Traer actually reached out after Canal and invited me, but I just don't think it'd be good to rush into something and then try to either rush the recovery process from now and going into that race or the recovery process afterwards. So I'm really just going to focus on Bandera, get a good training block in and try to get some good miles and a couple good workouts in. But then Bandera will be the main one. Then unfortunately I have track season, which is my job, which I love. So not unfortunately, but really nothing from then probably until Gorge Waterfalls. I'm signed up for Gorge Waterfalls 100K. Me and Alex Miner going down. He's going to run the 50K, and I want to run the 100K. So really excited for that one too. Ever since Holly Ann ran it last year, and I was able to follow through the free trail, live stream, I fell in love with the race. So definitely excited for that one because I think Dylan Bowman and the Daybreak Racing crew does a great job with it. Hopefully get lucky with the lottery for Western States because that's my ultimate goal. I mean, obviously, I want to try hard for the golden ticket, but like, those are few and far between. So, really, just hope to get in somehow, no matter what way it happens, and run Western States. But other than that, I kind of just do my normal gig of the local races. If I don't get into Western, I might do Highland Sky 40 miler again. Might do Canal Trace again, the 50K. Hurricane 100K was a lot of fun this past year with the big, payout. So shout out to the Hurricane 100K crew. I got beat by Alex Miner, so definitely want to win that one if possible. And then I don't know after that. Really need to figure out what kind of 100-mile race I want to do next fall and winter. I'd like to do something different. Rim to River is obviously on the table, but since I've done Canal Corridor, it's kind of opened my eyes to a few other races. So
Tunnel Hill
schedule. Tunnel Hill would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun. So that's on the list.
I'm thinking about it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I might do it again. I think I could take a lot of time off of what I did. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Rematch?
For sure.
You should do it.
Yeah. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And usually the field's pretty good and weather's decent. So it's like
we need to get you on the track.
I don't know if I have the mental fortitude to do that.
He said he's on the track all spring, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not personally,
Come
but
on, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking about that on my run today. Like, could I run more than 50 miles on a track? I really don't know.
Yeah.
First off, I'd probably have to get a good podcast and just listen to a few rounds of that. And then maybe a good playlist. I don't know. I've never run with music or anything. I've never had headphones before, so I really don't know how that'd be. But it's totally. I think it'd be fine though, because I feel like it's not as bad as what you think until it is as bad as you think. Until I don't know, hour 16. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You have a lot more experience with that, so I don't know where it gets stuck.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, reach out and we'll talk about it.
I mean, Desert Solstice would be kind of cool. It's just, I don't know. I mean, scary. You were Stinger. And that's important, right?
East Coast, huh?
East Coast, Beast Coast. There we go.
Yeah. Keep it at the East Coast. It's the best one in the nation anyway.
I like it.
Josh Keck's in the chat and says, asking if there's going to be a rematch, and it sounds like you guys already answered that question and are planning it at this point for Tunnel Hill.
Yours. Tunnel Hill could be a good one. There are some good ones at the beginning of next year that I'm eyeing too. There's Umstead in North Carolina. There's C&O Canal up in Maryland. There are a few that aren't record eligible too, though. I know Umstead is. So if you would want to go low 12, then keep that one in mind. But yeah, there are multiple that are at the beginning of the year. So it doesn't have to be Tunnel Hill for the next flat fast one. It could be another one too. Have some fun.
Brazos Bend or Brazos Bend in Texas.
Yep, in Texas.
That could be a fast one.
Yeah, it gets a little hot.
Yeah.
So I mean, it depends on the year. If you get a nice cool year, it could be a very fast course.
Yeah. So I'd love to do Javelina, but our conference meet is going to be that same weekend every single time for cross country. So that one's off the list.
Yeah.
I'd also like to do Grindstone, which is the exact opposite of what we're talking about. It's like a 26,000 feet elevation gain, but that one was a lot of fun to crew and pace. So I think that'd be a fun one to do. But yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
Holly G in the chat says that she agrees that Caleb needs to get on the 24-hour track on ASAP as an option. So
hey, the more I tell people right now, I think a U.S. team qualifier is going to take 160 in a 24-hour period, and I think that you could probably pull that off. So I would love to see you shoot for it. We can use some strong guys on the team always. Stronger the better.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, once you get on the team, you have to do it again because you have to do it at World. That's a few times.
Well, you don't have to.
Yeah. No, you got to represent. You got to represent.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
So
I do love the fact from like in races that are like especially like point to points, it's like part of a journey and you're trying to like complete the journey. On a track, there is
mhm.
no journey. The journey is all in your head and you're just running around in a circle. I don't know.
Hey, win the little battles every 400 meters. You win the 400-meter race, and if you do that, Caleb, you'll win. Uh,
Yeah.
the track, the race. So
I
you'll
don't
be
when
know.
I
I mean,
was talking to Rich Riopel, trying to figure out, how I was going to pace one of my 24 hours when I was first starting out on this stuff, he said that he was tracking by the 100-meter. So he would have a he would have a 100-meter split that he had a goal for the whole race. And I was like, I could never. That's too
no.
much, man. That's too
No.
much.
Did he get mad? Like, was he like visibly like frustrated every like other 200 meters, like being like, I missed it this time, or right on the money? Like,
Oh no, I think he ran 162 point something. That was
I
when
can
he
even
ran at
imagine.
D3.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
Well, we wish you both best of luck on your upcoming races. I think Wesley agrees with me when I say that have fun at Gorge Waterfalls. It's incredibly gorgeous. So it's a beautiful place to run.
Get it? Gorgeous.
I don't,
Yeah, that was a good one. Well done. Ryder. We got a rapid fire quick questions here at the end of the show. Caleb, you've been through these, but you get to answer them again. And then Jacob, this is going to be new for you. And then we'll wrap it up here. So first thing on the list here is what's one thing that you can't leave an aid station without? And Jacob, you can go first. Jacob's frozen. Well, Caleb, you can go. See if Jacob comes back to us here.
Oh, is he back?
there we go.
Oh,
There you go.
Now I'm back.
all
right.
good.
So the question was, what's one thing that you can't leave an aid station without? If you want to go first, Jacob.
Yeah, definitely my water bottle every time. That's about it, though. If I've got that, I'm good.
How about you, Caleb?
Oh, definitely mashed potatoes. I mean, that's the go-to.
What is the weirdest hallucination mid-race or strangest thing you've seen somebody eat at an aid station?
I didn't actually see it, but there was a guy drinking out of his shoe at Canal Corridor.
What?
Yes.
What were those circumstances?
I have no idea, but it was a picture from Canal Corridor, and it was the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen. So,
Like someone lost a
Wow,
bet.
yeah. Someone
Yeah.
knows the backstory there. Throw that in the chat. We'd love to learn
that
about that.
I
deeper.
would like to know. That would be great.
That takes a cake.
That's definitely the grossest thing I've heard so far on
Yeah.
the show. On that.
Did you see that, Caleb?
No, I never did.
No.
Breaking
I'll have
news,
to
it
look up
was
the picture.
Caleb.
It might have been. Was it on the website?
Oh,
David Creta in
I-
the chat says drinking a beer out of his shoe at the finish line.
that was it. It was disgusting.
That's one way to celebrate that, I guess.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea.
Caleb, what about you?
I really struggle with this one because I've never really hallucinated or seen too many weird things. I did see 10 snakes on the course at Canal Corridor. I'm like, it's October. There shouldn't be any snakes around, but there was. So that's going to be my answer. 10 snakes. 5 are dead, 5 are alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were actually real.
They might have been hallucinations, but they definitely look real. And me, Arlen, and Jeremy were counting them, so I think they're real.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, next question's for Jacob here. What is one ball sport that you think you could beat most ultra runners at?
Racquetball.
Oh, that's a really good answer. That's the first time we've had that answer on this show. What about you, Caleb?
So I'll go with my answer from last time. Definitely soccer against you, Wesley.
Yeah, I still don't think that'll happen. I'll let you take the 100-mile success at Canal, but I don't think on the soccer field that you'll be able to. We'll have to
See, I
get a
played for
match.
6 years. 6 years little league, I got a lot of skills.
Hey, we'll make sure to test it out when I'm back east for sure.
Well, you
Yeah,
can just play him right
defender of the
after Gorge.
year.
You just drive over there to
Gorge,
team at
yeah.
Gorge and just play him right
There we go.
afterwards. Yeah,
I like
still,
it,
We'll
yeah.
still beat you. That's even worse if we beat you then.
Yep.
We'll both run Gorge, and then whoever plays soccer, versus each other afterwards. That'll be like the test.
I'll bring a ball.
New duathlon out
There we
there.
go.
I'm ready.
I smell an injury coming.
Probably.
Please be careful.
1v1 full field.
Just Wesley side that's injured. That's it.
If ultra running had walk-up songs like baseball, what would yours be? And just to let you all know that this does go onto the Ridge Runners Spotify playlist, so we have the most eclectic list of music on there. Jacob, do you want to go first here?
So mine changes for each peak race that I'm building up toward. For the Stinger, when I ran 159, it was Back in Black. And for this one, it's so far turned out to be Eye of the Tiger, because we're watching Rocky. We're watching all of them all the way through. So
Nice. What about you, Caleb?
Let's see. I'm gonna go with Apple Tree Blues by Camp. I'm definitely in a big camp kick right now, so that's gonna be it. Now, where do I find a Spotify playlist? Because I've looked for it, I can't find it.
If you go to our Instagram profile and click the little link, the link tree button, scroll down.
Okay.
Tunes of the Nation is near the mid to bottom of that list. Wesley, are you looking at this right now?
Yeah, it's somewhere on the list. I'm not entirely.
I'll move it up to the top just so you can find it, just for you. And then this one's one of our favorite questions to ask. If you could run with one person in the history of the world, even if they aren't a runner, and assuming they would be able to keep your pace, who would it be and where would you run? And Caleb, if you want to lead this one.
I'm gonna go with my dad. I want to run a race with my dad where we run the whole thing together, finish together. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Nice. Where would you want to run at?
You know what? Western States would be pretty cool. On that track, that'd be really cool to finish with him.
Love it. How about you, Jacob?
yeah, I'd actually have to say the same. I would want to run the Stinger with my dad. I think it'd be pretty cool to go a 24-hour with him. He's always done my timing and everything. So yeah, it'd be a lot of fun, especially to do it somewhere where I've raced so many times with him there. So
awesome.
And before we close out, we want to kind of give you guys a chance to, plug any sponsors you may have. Of course, give Ridge Runner Nation your social medias. They're an active bunch, and they'll love following you guys along, especially on your upcoming races. So, Jacob, if you want to start off with this one.
Man, every time we ask him a question, he just freezes. It's one way to get out of answering it, I guess.
It's a great tactic.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we'll toss it over to Caleb first.
Is Caleb frozen now?
Technical difficulties on the show right now.
It looks like you're both froze.
Oh, Jacob's back. Oh no. Yeah, it says my internet's unstable.
Like we can't close the show. All the internet's crashing. This is wild. All right, Jacob. Any sponsors and thank you social media you want to plug before we get out of here?
yeah, so I actually started making my own muscle relief rub. So I guess I'll plug my own business. I actually made it for myself because, working with muscle knots and whatnot. So it's got like magnesium and arnica and essential oils and everything in it. So that's in my link tree on my Instagram, if you're interested in looking at that. And I also do personal coaching. So if you are interested in coaching or anything, feel free to reach out. And also, I could not do this without both the Foot Store and Mount Pleasant. They're always fantastic with helping me figure out, what I need, even with some physical therapy stuff, depending on what it is. And West Ashley Wellness and Rehab has helped me a ton with some shockwave and stuff like that. So definitely those.
Awesome. What about you, Caleb?
Yeah, so I'm squirrel nut butter. It's awesome. Definitely prevents all the chafing and stuff. Picky bars. That's something I've just now become ambassador for, but they're awesome. I love eating their bars and their oatmeal and stuff. Just want to give a shout out to like all the Huntington runners, both collegiate and ultra runners, just fun runners. Anyway, I love this community, and it's been so much fun being a part of something a lot bigger than me. Watching all these people get really excited about the sport. We're helping Dan Green out at Rim River this year. He's going to Black Canyon in February. Me and Alex are going to Bandera in January. We just have a lot of good people who are excited about the sport and just want to get better. And I've seen a lot of younger guys want to be a part of it, and women as well. It's been really cool. Marshall University for giving me a job and letting me coach these athletes. It's amazing. Definitely blessed to be part of that. Free Fall Brewing, in Fayetteville, they have been so awesome. The Edwards, that they were the ones that own it, like they have been amazing. And then everybody at Rim to River this weekend, give them a shout out, give them prayers whenever they're starting to run. Hopefully everybody finishes and does great. But other than that, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on the show and taking time to hang out with us and talk about this. It was awesome to follow along the day of, obviously, and just fantastic to see the efforts you both put out in there and both breaking course record and whatnot. Caleb setting the course record now, so that was fantastic to watch. Other than that, I don't think we got anything else. Be back next 2 weeks from now. We'll be back for another live show. Yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you guys for having us on.